This is BBC News, the headlines. British boxer Ricky Hatton has died at the age of 46. Hatton was a former world champion boxer in 2 weight classes and had been due to make a comeback in December of this year. Virginia Giuffre's family tells the BBC that the British government was wrong to appoint Peter Mandelson as their ambassador to the US because of his ties to the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Israeli forces continue to ramp up their assault on Gaza City with a wave of heavy airstrikes on high-rise buildings, forcing more residents to flee. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has again criticised the Israeli strike on Qatar as he begins a 2-day visit to the Middle East. Benjamin Netanyahu says the visit shows the strength of the ties between Israel and the United States.
Now on BBC News, exploring the latest innovation and technology shaping our lives, and with the inside track on global trends and advancements in the tech space today. From AI and robotics to health, climate, transport and gaming. Tech Now.
What do you think this is going to do for survival rates?
I think it's the key player. The difference is that with early diagnosis, you can give them cure.
In this example from America, the system raised an alert when this truck left the road.
That's not real.
That is. It's nuts, isn't it? It's like someone's taken a Photoshop and done half one cat and half the other.
Wow.
Alison was a proud mother, hugely successful businesswoman, was rarely talked about herself, was always doing other things for others in the community. She was selfless.
Sean's wife Alison discovered she had pancreatic cancer at the end of 2020. Her cancer was so advanced she was unable to receive treatment, and sadly she died in January 2021, aged just 54. Her story is not unique. Pancreatic cancer is often picked up at a late stage when surgery or chemotherapy are no longer options, or it's spread to other parts of the body. There's currently no routine test to look for early signs. So whilst it's the 10th most common cancer in the UK, survival rates lag far behind many of those for other cancers. Here at Southampton Clinical Trials Unit, they've just started to evaluate a blood test that might be able to detect pancreatic cancer in its earliest stages. But if it's such a silent killer, where on earth do you find likely candidates?
Alison, during the summer of 2020, had some mild indigestion symptoms. They gradually morphed into autumn 2020 in what you would call classic diabetes symptoms. She had a diabetes test and she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in October 2020.
It seems cancer can interfere with the way that the pancreas produces insulin. So, as in Alison's case, it often presents as type 2 diabetes.
Quite often we see people coming to our clinic with pancreatic cancer, and when we go through their history, we find that they have got diabetes which has been recently diagnosed usually within the 3 to 6 months prior to the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer.
So the unit here has been signing up volunteers who've been newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes to take the test. All they need to do is give a blood sample, which is processed here before being sent off to San Diego for full analysis. By a biotech company called ClearNote Health. But how does the test work?
We leverage the fact that when cancer develops in the body, it induces chemical changes in our genome. Those DNA epigenomic changes essentially modify the letters in our DNA. So in the lab behind me, we have robots that you see that essentially measure precisely those changes. And we couple that with DNA sequencing. And once we're able to sequence we can understand where they occur in our genes and in our genome, we then use artificial intelligence to put together a predictor.
Once the analysis is completed, the test result is a binary yes or no.
It essentially informs the physician whether a patient's blood contains the early signals of pancreatic cancer or not. The test report in hand, the physician can make the decision about whether additional diagnostic tests are needed.
There are several companies out there doing these types of liquid biopsy tests, but ClearNote's approach here is different. It's focusing on one particular cancer with a very low survival rate. That's why the trial here to find a reliable test that works and is worth the investment is vital.
All of these trials that we're running are so important to make sure that any technology that's coming through, you have to be so careful to make sure that actually they don't end up doing more harm than good. There's huge amounts of work that happens about, the health economics around the early diagnosis of cancer. So bringing together not just the lab analysis, but also the impact that it has on society and the cost is really important, and bringing all of that evidence together to then enable screening committees to make a decision about whether they should be adopted.
So if the test is proven to be effective, it could be a game changer. So long term, if you find a way of being able to identify the cancer earlier, what do you think this is going to do for survival rates?
I think it's the key player, earlier diagnosis. And the reason is, although treatment, modalities of treatment, chemotherapy and precision medicine, all these are important. The difference is that with early diagnosis, you can give them cure.
What we're seeing here is a real direction of travel in terms of the aim for early diagnosis in cancer. And it's not just pancreatic cancer that you're looking at here, is it?
No, so we're also working with 2 multi-cancer tests, one for 10 cancers and one for 12 cancers. Because what we want to do is be in a position where in the future we can have blood tests that can be performed in the community. So we have that really early stage diagnosis of patients who would need further investigation for signs of cancer.
If any of those taking part in this study do get a positive result for pancreatic cancer, they're fast-tracked for an MRI scan and then further tests. Now, this is just a pilot, but if successful, the team will then move on to a much larger phase involving many more patients. If an earlier diagnosis for the disease can be found, it will no doubt have a profound effect.
What it would have done for us was certainly buy us more time, allow her to have chemotherapy. Potentially, if it was diagnosed at the diabetes stage, that's where maybe we could have got more time as a family, maybe more months, maybe even years, and more time to make memories together.
Our busy roads can be dangerous places. But inside this building, there are people watching the roads to keep them safe. Look at this. Andrew, what is this?
This is the Motorway Operations Control Centre, where we look at and monitor and watch 1,300 kilometres of Irish motorways.
So this is the whole country, essentially?
This is the whole country.
Amazing.
All of Ireland.
What are the people here doing? What kind of things are you looking out for?
The lads here are looking for breakdowns where people have gotten into difficulty, they're broken down on the side of the road. They may be looking for collisions. They may be looking for debris, lost loads, cargo straps, that type of thing lying on the road. Another problem we would have is pedestrians and cyclists ending up in the motorway network.
The huge bank of screens gives you a sense how challenging that task is, which is why staff are getting help spotting incidents and accidents from an AI system made by a startup called Valorem. Well, as you can hear, the road generates a lot of noise. It also generates a lot of data from things like navigation apps and CCTV. And Valorem's AI analyzes that data to spot hazards and raise the alarm.
So you would have a camera like that one over there that can monitor traffic. You'd have roadside radars that automatically detect incidents, or even underground sensors that count and classify traffic. Phones with navigation apps and social media share information about risks and incidents. And what our system does is it collects this wealth of information.
Give me an example of a time where the AI flagged something to the operators here.
In this case, we're looking through about 11,500 alerts every single day, and our system goes through that and picks the most important ones. In this case, we had alerts from Waze navigation app, where people drive along the motorway, use this navigation app, and if they see an incident, they report it. The AI also noticed that traffic speed in blue absolutely dropped to under 40 kilometers an hour. Our AI also sieved through and processed the video footage in the area. What you can see in this replay is that traffic speed is flowing normally, and as I fast forward, you can see all of a sudden a breakdown of traffic, all to the point where vehicles are actually stopping in the live lane. And so when the AI raised all this, the operator looked at this event, immediately validated, and sent over a response, and indeed there was a collision.
In this example from America, the system raised an alert when this truck left the road and disappeared from view. Valoran tell us that luckily the driver escaped serious injury.
What we saw was that the operators were able to see things a bit quicker, and on average, when the system alerted them of something that they didn't know about already, it typically alerted 10 or 15 minutes before they would have found it otherwise.
AI is advancing all the time. What's the future of this technology?
As data becomes more available and AI becomes more effective, this type of life-saving technology can be applied to all roads. Suddenly, more remote communities and small rural roads can enjoy the same benefits of active monitoring and response as these busier networks.
The obvious question that springs into people's minds is going to be start replacing human beings.
No, not at all. As technology is evolving, there's more and more data being generated. The problem with data generation, it takes people to interpret it and how we use it currently. This tool lets us use that data and provide that information to operators to do something meaningful with. It's a tool we're looking at. It's not a replacement for people, it's a tool for people to help them to do their job better.
The role of AI in road safety is still a promising work in progress. For now, safety still critically depends on that other intelligent automotive system, the driver.
Like many Londoners on a summer's night, I'm heading to a gig.
Okay, so this is meet-up times.
But it's not just an ordinary DJ set. These artists are coding live. And one has an AI agent at the ready.
Our first artist tonight is going to be the one and only Digital Soul.
Everyone's worried about the impact of AI on the arts, replacing jobs and scraping artist data without remuneration. We're here to meet people taking AI in new directions and using it to improve their art.
Lizzie Wilson is a creative computing lecturer at the University of Arts London by day and AI live music coder by night.
Live coding, for musicians at least, it's about making music with code. Maybe a piano player will play notes with their fingers. For a live coder, they will kind of encode musical information in computer code and kind of run and compile in real time so that you can kind of build a musical performance live.
Having to think of code on the spot is tricky, which is where Lizzie's personalised AI agent comes in, built specifically for her music.
So if you're kind of working in a performance live, maybe you get a bit stuck and you think, I'm not sure where to go next, or you want some more kind of creative ideas, then you kind of use this tool to get a suggestion. It's a very kind of symbiotic relationship between the AI and the human. Kick drum.
We went through the process of what it means to live code and the prep before a gig.
First thing you can do is you can just say sound. So I'm going to say K for kick drum. And if I say ×4, now it's going to play this kick drum 4 times in one cycle. So it's going to go 4 times as fast. Or we can kind of group some notes together and then we can make a little melody as well.
So we've got this bit of music. How would your AI tool come into it then?
Yeah, so when I type this $, you can see this little box pops up.
Yeah.
And here we have the suggestion of the pattern. So you hear that wobble, right?
Yeah, okay.
And then we've got this kind of like drum hit as well. So it's like a whole new pattern of code where you can just kind of have an idea that you would never have before.
One of the challenges facing musicians and artists is having their data scraped to teach AI models without their permission. Lizzie built her AI agent through volunteers in the live coding community donating their data with consent and customised it for her music. But there are other risks when using AI in creative fields. We spoke to Professor Mick Grierson, who's worked with musicians like Massive Attack.
What are some of the threats of large language models and other uses of AI by big tech companies?
It seems to me that what these systems do, given that I've been using them for a long time, is they tend to make a good average approximation of those things that lump up together in the middle. But what's interesting about culture are those things on the edges. I think there's a real danger that people will forget the value of unique creative capability and the value that has on how we describe and define ourselves.
How do you kind of foster the extremes?
Customization. So all of these systems are best when you're customizing them to reflect the way you see the world, to bring in your perspective. Using a system someone else has built for you, that's never going to be as good as using a system you built for yourself or your friends.
Customization is exactly what the live coding community is attempting to do, working together to build tech which aids their art. We meet Lizzie and the community at the Algorhythms gig, where these collaborations begin. First, we start with a session with new and old coders to work on music together. I also give it my best shot.
Like this one here is the bass.
Just like jazz musicians improvising, Lizzie uses the AI to bring together elements of the music she's done before to make something new.
It was kind of designed to produce these new artifacts that maybe you hadn't always thought about. In terms of creativity, it definitely gives you that access to things that you might not yourself be able to conceptualize.
My name is Tim Flack. I'm an animal photographer, and we're here in my studio in Shoreditch, London. Over the years, I've done quite a few different subject matters, tracked down endangered animals, and here I find myself with one of the most difficult of them all, and that is the cats. Can I persuade you with a chin rub here, or not?
Today, I'm witnessing the creative process behind Tim's latest book, Feline.
What's all this? For all these fancy lures we have to try to get some interest, it's actually the humble feather that for the most part is the most effective. Let's see, hold on. I don't know if this is going to be, there you go, you see. Dogs have masters, no, and cats have staff. Honestly, the more you try, the more they think, well, hold on a moment, what's in it for me? Shoot 18, because that'll give us depth, because the cat may go anywhere. Like that.
But look at that pose, look at the shape, look at its form there.
It's a killing machine. I've been working collaboratively with scientists, and we're finding that images that are put against a plain background tend to evoke more empathy than traditional wildlife imagery.
Look at these images. These are unreal. Look at that one.
Yeah, he looks like he's punching the air, doesn't he? And so he looks a bit like he's got shorts on.
And that one doesn't look like it's even got a tail.
So what I'm interested to do is to explore what kind of images make us really care, truly care, and want to act.
That's not real.
That is. It's nuts, isn't it? It's like someone's taking Photoshop and done half one cat and half the other.
Wow. Tim's distinct style has earned him global acclaim, but recently he says some rather unwelcome attention from generative artificial intelligence.
So that's the prompt,
Yeah.
Eagle by Tim Flack. That's all the prompt is. And then the next shot is that. So all we're asking you is to do an image by me of a bird. So it picks one of the birds that was actually in my book, Birds, that came out in 2021. And that came from that image. So essentially that was my image, and that's effectively what it created. And if you think about the prompt saying eagle, just by Tim Flack, we haven't asked it to be on a black background, we haven't asked it to look straight forward, we haven't specified
It's pretty shocking, isn't it?
We're at this point where the genie's been let out of the bottle and it's not going back in.
And what did you think when you saw that for the first time?
I was surprised. I mean, I think for the viewer, they'd say, well, I can tell the difference. Yes, you can, but keep in mind, we're embryonic at this stage. It's going to get better and better and better. I've got a snow leopard here, and if you look at the spots of my actual cat are the same spots. They've borrowed my work, they've stolen it, they've not remunerated, they haven't credited me. This is not good. Just go wherever you feel comfortable. Whoa.
In an effort to future-proof his work, Tim's placing cat-shaped QR codes in his book, which when scanned by a viewer's phone or tablet will link to footage from the photo shoots to show that he really did snap the cats.
This is our gimbal, which we use to shoot the sort of behind-the-scenes content of the cats. And we're just going to set it up and leave it on the side as we work today.
Tim hopes an accompanying video will prove his images are authentic, because these days seeing isn't necessarily believing. That's like yin and yang.
I know. Isn't that nuts? You wouldn't believe it. Look at this guy, looks like a footballer, you know? If you believe that's real. You have to see the footage. In the past, it was just hard enough to keep the cat still on set. Now I have to worry that people might think it never was there on set. And that this doubt is coming in, that the platforms are being polluted with the unreal, that which never has existed. And I find it really, really sort of disconcerting.
Now Tim's trying to curtail copycats by making his images look more realistic.
We put evidence back into the picture. I wouldn't so much imperfections, but sometimes a few spare hairs floating around. And the intention there is to, in a sense, give evidence that it's real. All these hairs have been put in by me.
But hold on. So you've added hairs that weren't actually there in this image in an effort to prove that that's a real image?
Yes.
Okay.
But I've added a lot that were taken out and been put in that were originally there.
I can't follow this. I can't.
The thing for us to do is, at this point in time, to have a good go at, in a sense, future-proofing it.
But you could be out of a job soon, Tim.
Well, I could be, but the job will change. Maybe it will be a different type of imagery. thinking, I might be out of a job. In fact, the job market's going to change. What would those skill sets be? I wonder, will it be critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity? Will imagination be more valuable? Look at that. Can I see that last shot?
They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and whilst Tim is rising to the challenge, I can't help but wonder if this issue of artist versus AI is all just a game of cat and mouse.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Tributes are paid to former boxing world champion Ricky Hatton, who's died at the age of 46.
Ricky was a larger-than-life character. He was just loved by everyone.
Virginia Giuffre's family tells the BBC the British government was wrong to appoint Peter Mandelson as US ambassador because of his ties with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
So absolutely not. He should not have been given the position in the first place.
Israeli forces ramp up their assault on Gaza City with a wave of heavy airstrikes on high-rise buildings, forcing more residents to flee. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has again criticised the Israeli strike on Qatar as he starts a two-day visit to the Middle East. Sir Keir Starmer condemns yesterday's violence by protesters and says Britain will never surrender their flag to those who seek to use it as a symbol of division. Hello and welcome, I'm Martine Croxall. British boxing champion Ricky Hatton has been found dead at his home. He was 46. Greater Manchester Police say that they're not treating his death as suspicious. Ricky won world titles at light welterweight and welterweight and fought some of the sport's biggest names, helping him to become one of the most popular British boxers of the time. Let's cross to the BBC Sports Centre and join Lizzie Greenwood-Hughes. And so many tributes, as you would expect, pouring in, not just from boxing, the industry, the sport itself, Lizzie, but from his many, many fans.
Yeah, because as you've been hearing all morning since we had this terrible news, he was a real man of the people. He was a Manchester man and they loved Ricky Hatton. The Manchester fans, whether they were boxing fans or not, they still loved him because they saw him as one of them. Even basically throughout his entire career, he was boxing in Manchester. He didn't disappear off to a training camp for 6 months before a big fight. He was there in Manchester. Anyone could have joined the gym. Anyone could have watched him fighting. So he really was a man of the people. You talk about some of the tributes coming in. Well, we've had one from Manchester City. He was a huge Manchester City football fan. Where he lived is in City territory. And they've actually given a lovely statement which says, few, if any, British boxers can claim to have garnered such a dedicated fan base. His audience was captivated by his relentlessness, front foot boxing style, and felt a deep connection to the humble, down-to-earth human being that he's always been. It was the realisation of a lifetime ambition for Ricky. A scholar of boxing, he'd always dreamt of making the Las Vegas Strip his own, and he did so in some style. Hatton wore sky blue shorts and used Blue Moon as he walked out for his walkout song throughout his career. And in 2008, he fulfilled another dream when he fought Juan Lacano at the Etihad Stadium. Ricky was one of City's most loved and revered supporters. He will always be remembered. Well, of course, today is the City derby. It's the Manchester derby. I imagine there'll be a minute's silence and a lot of stunned fans will be thinking of him as they watch his team play today. Tributes are already being left at his house in Hyde in Manchester. But just going back to his career, really, I think what's important to say is that, yes, he's famous because he's famous for losing to Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, but that was at the end of him having won 45 professional fights. He was an extraordinary boxer, and it was only when he went to Vegas and took them on and only narrowly lost to Mayweather. And actually that defeat was one that he found very difficult to recover from. John Rawling, I think, on the channel said earlier that he never really recovered from that mentally because it was such a blow to him because he was such a terrier. When you speak to some boxers later on, I think you've got Amir Khan coming up, who's someone that was a huge fan of Ricky Hatton's, and he was a real hero to him. He will talk about this, but he had a style that was... He was like a terrier. He would go in and he would take a few hits going in and then he would attack the body. He was famous for his body blows. Really gritty fighter, an unusual style and one that won him legions of fans as well as all of those boxing matches. So it is a real shock. It's such a shock. He was only 46. He was due to make a comeback this year. He's got a fight planned in Dubai in December. He would have been 47 for that. So this has come as a huge shock to not just the boxing community, but sports fans and Mancunians.
Lizzie, thank you very much, Lizzie Greenwood-Hughes. Well, Lizzie's quite right because boxer Amir Khan has been paying tribute to Ricky Hatton. We'll talk about more of what he tweeted in a few moments' time. But Amir Khan joins us now from Dubai. Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News, Amir. I mean, this must be an immense shock to you. Not only someone you admired, but someone you regarded as a friend, a good friend. How did you get to know Ricky Hatton?
So I've known Ricky a very long time, obviously looking up, watching his amazing, massive fights he used to have in Manchester Arena back in the days, and obviously then travelling all around the world and fighting the biggest names in boxing, from the Mayweathers to Manny Pacquiao's and everything. So he was a massive inspiration to me in my career. Not only that, he came to my wedding. He also came to me when I won my first world title. He was at the fight, giving me all the great advice I needed at the time. And it's just so sad because he was a very dear friend of ours. He's been to my house, I've been to his, and we used to always share messages together. And now recently, you just mentioned he was going to go back in the ring again and do an exhibition fight against a friend of mine called Isa Alda in Dubai, that was. And I was going to be ringside there as well. And it's just sad because this just coming Monday, he was supposed to be in Dubai for a press conference where I was going to see him. But tragic news. I mean, for the world of boxing, not only for Britain, he was a massive name, and he's going to be definitely missed. I mean, what style he had, pressure fighter, also brought the whole of Manchester to boxing. I mean, it's a big loss for us.
Just give us an insight into what sort of advice he gave you. This will fascinate people who follow boxing closely.
Yeah, you know, the advice he gave me, I remember when I was going to America and having my first fight over there, and he said to me, just stay calm, stay focused. There's going to be a lot of media. There's going to be a lot of trash talking. And I thought a guy called Paulie Malignaggi, and he was telling me Paulie is from New York, and the New Yorkers have a lot of, they're very vocal. And so just don't let him get to you. Don't let him get under your skin. Just stay focused and stay calm. And that's what I did. Just like when Mayweather and him were at the press conference and Mayweather was going at him, he stayed nice and calm and gave Mayweather one of his hardest fights. But look, these little advices that he gave me took me a long way. I even went to training camp a couple of times to watch him train and see how hard he used to train as a fighter. And what motivated me was how hard he trained. And that only just pushed me more in my career as well. And obviously there was talks about me and him fighting one day, but we were just too close of friends that would not have happened.
No, I can't imagine that you would want to do that at all.
No, he was a dear friend of mine, and obviously now his son Campbell, he's a great fighter. He's also doing he's in the professional game now, and you know, I'd like to speak to him if he needs any advice, like his father gave me advice. I'd love to be there for him and give him that bit of advice as well.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.